Modify each structure in the drawing with an explicit unidentified atom or pair of electrons necessary to complete the reaction shown. Okay? Everything within the box must be altered. Okay? So you cannot just leave it blank. Okay? Once you've done that, you should then be able to identify the role that each of those things within the box, which are all acid derivatives, played in the reaction shown. Okay? So if I really wanted to push at this a whole bunch, I might switch up the order because that first one seems to throw everybody off and then you ignore everything else. Okay? So instead of ignoring everything else, let's take a look at some of the other ones. Okay? So let's look at the second one because you have an answer there. Okay? So let's go through and do what your arrow shows because you've now said that this is what happens. What would the result be? I heard a negative, so there's a good statement. That oxygen has gained a pair of electrons, so it is now negative. We did nothing to that one, so that's still there. And that would be positive. Is the structure I drew the same as what's shown as the answer? No. What does that mean?
There's something else that needs to happen.
Something else is going on there and beyond what you have shown. Okay. So what is the difference between my hand-drawn red structure and the nice, pretty black structure?
You're missing a hydrogen on the negative oxygen.
Yeah.
That negative oxygen should have a hydrogen on it, right?
Yeah.
Where was that negative oxygen coming from in our starting material? The carbonyl oxygen. Does it have a hydrogen on it shown?
No.
Does it need to have a hydrogen on it?
So you're missing an H plus.
Oh, I don't like that. So we're just trying.
Blue was a horrible color. Let's try purple. Is purple better?
Yes, purple's much better.
So we're just drawing.
So we're just, so
What was
technically
added?
it's wrong. in a
So
sense.
what was wrong with the thing in the black box? It needed a hydrogen. What were the directions? Modify each structure by drawing an explicit unidentified atom, like a hydrogen, or pair of electrons. What did you add?
Did you just say put it-
Okay. Modify each structure. What do you need to do?
Big question.
By drawing an explicit atom. The explicit atom to draw would be
Hydrogen.
hydrogen. Okay. What did the structure in the black box act as in that reaction? Having the curved arrows on there can help.
Electrophile.
It accepted electrons from another structure, so electrophile is correct. People have complained about this question. I have no idea how to change it. It tells you literally what to do. Add an atom.
What about the first one then?
Okay, so let's take a look at the first one. What changed? What?
Supposedly something.
Nothing, which means that something had to have changed because you're told that you have to modify it. So maybe what we should do is evaluate the other thing that we know doesn't need to be modified. What's the other thing? The thing outside the box. What does that thing act as?
Attack alcohol.
What's that?
Attacks alcohols.
Doesn't-
No.
Yeah, that's the weird one.
The thiosulfate.
It's this thiosulfur. Well, thiosulfur is the same thing, but thioester thing. Yeah. Let's modify it a little bit.
Protecting group? Is it the protecting group thing?
If it was a protecting group, wouldn't the structure have changed?
Yeah.
Dude, Mike, you haven't changed anything about it. Now I have, yeah. That would be sulfuric acid. Oh, that's the same. That's the same. That's the same. What is it going to react as? An acid, which means what does the structure in the box have to act as? A base. So we could write that down. It's a base. Okay? For it to act as a base, what must it have? Lone pair electrons. There's tons of lone pair electrons in there. Did any of those lone pair electrons react? Why not?
The product is.
The product doesn't have a hydrogen connected there, so it clearly wasn't those. So where was the lone pair electron that reacted with that acid?
It's added.
Is there another starting material?
It wasn't like you told me.
So one of the problems behind this might be that there are implied atoms. And because there are implied atoms,
I know what it is.
you're having a hard time seeing it.
Once again, it attacks alcohol, so you're missing the hydrogen.
No.
Don't go yes.
We said this structure acts as an acid, which means the other one must act as a base. To act as a base, there must be a pair of electrons somewhere in that structure.
Can we just get to that?
Could you just draw them on? What do the directions say? Draw an explicit pair of electrons. Yes, you could just draw them on. The question becomes, where should we draw them on?
She's talking about just trying to.
Can we just draw a base?
Just draw
The carbon between the carbonyls. Why do you want to draw them there? I like that idea.
The pi bonds from the carbonyls can resonate.
Resonance stabilized.
That would be the most stable place for a negative carbon to be. And what happens in this reaction? It protonates. It's an acid-base reaction. The hydrogen has now been placed back on the structure that it was implied. This is why you can't imply charges, okay, or lone pairs, okay, on carbons, because they disappear very, very quickly and can become implied hydrogens. Again, the directions literally say, add the atom or electrons.
Still don't like it.
Okay. What happened in the next reaction?
Is it a Clason?
Okay, possibly. So I see a hydrogen added here. So if you're adding a hydrogen there, you are suggesting that that reagent is?
It didn't like self-condensate.
If you're drawing on a hydrogen,
It's gonna act as an acid.
it would have to act as an acid. So when it reacts, this species must be acting as a base then. And so the product would be only the exchange of hydrogens. Yeah, that's not right. Okay? So specifying the hydrogen wasn't correct. That should be erased or crossed out. Crossing it out is fine. Okay? For those things to react. So there's a suggestion of a Clason. Okay, so one of the things that you could go through and do would be to try to identify where that new bond was formed. If you look at that product, there's that new bond, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What happened?
You have a lone pair of electrons on the methyl.
The methyl had to have a lone pair of electrons so that it could come in and attack the carbonyl. Because we're drawing on a lone pair of electrons and that is now attacking something other than a hydrogen, that species is
Nucleophile.
a nucleophile. How about the last one? What changed?
You remove the hydrogen,
Removed a hydrogen. Which hydrogen?
the one in between the carbonyls.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's acting as an acid.
There are 4 classifications for materials, right? What would those 4 classifications be for our materials? Acid, base, nucleophile, electrophile. Let's take a look at those answer choices.
Yeah, good for that.
Okay. Is drawing attention to all of the chemistry that you will now see where in the rest of the exam. Okay. It's trying to set it up so that you now have something to think about on where that chemistry is and how it reacts. Think about the pieces behind how these things work. Okay. The only thing that I will admit to is that very first one, everybody stumbles because they're the exact same structure, and that should have been moved lower in the sequence, because if it was lower in the sequence, you probably wouldn't have stumbled as hard. but the question literally tells you exactly what you should do. I really don't know how to change it.
It's just worded.
It's worded on.
How would you reword that?
It's like back and forth.
What are the things missing in the box? An unidentified atom or pair of electrons.
Well, it says explicit, so it's like, oh, you've got a charge on the outside, like you're changing charges on the inside and outside, and so I was like, oh, okay, there's probably, you said, if it's explicit, like, you would say implicit is the word there, that you're looking for.
No, you are drawing it, though. You are making it explicit.
Yeah, but
Yeah. By you explicitly draw an unidentified atom.
It's not saying the explicit, it's saying
No, the way that it's-
explicit.
I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know, like, are you starting?
Yeah, I'm still recording.
Okay.
Yeah, why not?
Well, I'm
Do you
just
have
saying,
like a
like.
button that you just start recording on?
Yeah,
whenever you
the
want?
one that's right there. Just